And he said, him and I had a conversation. He said, I didn't pick you because you knew how to do the work. I picked you because you knew how to deal with people. And that resonates me to this day in business, because your management is probably not going to be the best worker, but that's the person who know how to deal with different personalities.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. This is Sean, and today we have a special guest from the other side of the world. We are a 12-hour differential, and his name is Jay Haleem. He is the president and CEO of Jay Haleem Media. He is the author of 3 books. First is I Won't Starve, which is a very interesting title. Second is Morning Motivation, Consistent Encouragement Through a Crisis, which is his latest book. It just launched recently. Go pick that up in Amazon. And lastly, You Won't Starve, and the U there is the letter U. And he is also a motivational speaker and a business coach, and we are so blessed to have him here on the show today. Hey Jay, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Pleasure is mine, and we are excited to learn from you today. Hey Jay, well, the first question I usually ask my guests is, how were you able to start your business? How were you able to start being an entrepreneur? What's your story?
Again, for me, my story of being an entrepreneur started way before, college. I was on the other side of the track doing some illegal things. I learned my first commerce in the street, but I showed some promise in high school where I would sell what we call bus tickets. So in the New York metropolitan area in the States, that's one of the biggest transportation areas. So they had that. Nobody's transportation system is like New York. We had these bus tickets, like little coupons, like raffle tickets for students to catch buses, because we didn't catch like the yellow bus you see on TV. We caught the bus with the regular commuters. We had to get these little student tickets. Well, I had people who in my family, a distant family that worked for the transit stations, and they would give us tickets for free because we needed that type of assistance. But here I am. I saw that I went to a very, very good school, not my local school, because I played basketball. So I had other students that traveled, had to get 2 or 3 buses. So they needed the bus tickets for, so they bought them for me for a discounted price so they can go ahead and save some of the money that their parents gave them. So that was my first attempt at entrepreneurship, which I did it all through high school. And but again, I was also doing some other things because that was where I grew up at. I grew up in the New York area, and I saw, in the crack era, I just saw my family be riddled with that from using drugs. So it wasn't a cool thing to use drugs. So the people I saw that was very successful was the drug dealers. But I was blessed to get the opportunity to go to college, and I saw how other people lived. I started dabbling in entrepreneurship. But once I graduated college, I was already a felon by that time. So I couldn't get a regular job. So I used those skills that I had as an entrepreneur and started the business. I started a commercial cleaning business at that time. And I've been an entrepreneur ever since.
That's an amazing story. And the hurdles that just give you detours in life, and sometimes we consider them roadblocks. And for me, that's failing a lot in college, being a roadblock in my career, because who's gonna hire a guy with 28 failing units? And in your case, you mentioned that it's the effect and the influence of your neighborhood on you, and rap music as well. That's very interesting. How much has rap music influenced you growing up?
It influenced me a lot, and it still does to this day. It's just, those are the people we looked up to, because you had to have an imagination. You saw a lot of poverty. You really saw things that people, like, we got PTSD. I mean, I've been in crack houses. I've seen people bringing their babies in there to use drugs, with their babies coming to buy drugs. I've seen pregnant women come to buy drugs. I've seen people selling drugs to their friend's mother or their friend's aunt or dad. I've seen people's parents selling their goods out of their house to get high. I saw that. So you didn't see anything good unless you watch TV or you listen to the radio and you're seeing these people showing flashy, the jewelry, the clothes, the latest gear that you want. And so you have to use your imagination to say, how can I get that? How can I get those things? How can I be there? And then you had the drug dealers who, you see them here, then 2 years later, they may be in jail, maybe they did something. And so that didn't last long. So I know I had a very vivid imagination. One of my favorite cities to this day is Los Angeles. And people ask me why. I say, well, when I was growing up, all the movies were shot in Los Angeles. It's not so much the way like that now, but all the movies were shot in Los Angeles. Now they shoot other places, but primarily Hollywood was the place where you shot all the movies. So I used to just love watching movies and seeing Los Angeles because of the movies.
That's this is for me hearing it one of the few times that I have been able to hear stories like yours, and it's really inspiring how you were able to get over that hurdle. And you mentioned the dry cleaning startup that you did. So usually when you start your first business, that is very difficult. I know the first few years I started SEO Hacker, it was excruciating. It was dealing with just making sure revenue was greater than expenses, dealing with people. And I didn't know, I was an idiot. I didn't know how to deal with my people back then. I was a really bad leader. And the result was they made a little mutiny against me, and the company almost broke down from there. And I wonder, what are some of the challenges that you faced early on in your entrepreneurship career, and maybe you could share those insights with us.
Oh wow, man! Everything that you think of, it happened to me. But the cleaning business is it's not popular. So nobody over here in the States, they want the glamorous job. When you're cleaning toilets and things of that nature, it's not glamorous, and so it's hard to find good help. If you don't make a lot of revenue at first to pay good help, so you got to get people who are willing to take minimum wage or close to minimum wage, and then you also want them to be dedicated. And so that's really, really hard to ask to these people. So you're dealing with a lot of turnover. You're trying to get contract work, but you have to build yourself up so that you can get that type of contract work to sustain revenue. So my first couple of years was rough. And I got a chance to, I moved from South Carolina, where I was, to the Washington, D.C. area. And I got a mentor who brought me in to run his commercial cleaning contract. It was $1 million contract for a 300,000 square foot place. And I learned everything I needed to learn in the year that I ran that contract. And that made me a better, business owner in that field, because I learned everything. It was nothing that I didn't encounter. And I was able to do a whole lot better with my company afterwards.
So you mentioned that you had a mentor, and that was like a big contract. That's $1 million contract. You don't see a lot of that when you're just starting up. It might surprise you, but a lot of the questions I get from the podcast is how do you find these mentors, like these exact mentors that you get, and and when you find them, what are the chances that they're gonna turn to you and say, yeah, I'm gonna help you out? And how do you do that? How do you get them to do that?
Well, I wasn't looking, I promise you. My wife is from the other side of the track. She comes from a 2-parent home. She's in church, everything like that. And so, but then she's also my college sweetheart. So she saw me struggling. She saw me trying to do the right thing. Again, I'm fighting my case, facing 10 years in prison all through college. And so she see me working, trying to do the right thing. So once I graduate, I can't really find a job. And so I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I didn't want to clean any toilets either, but she told me about her pastor who had a cleaning business in Maryland. And so she said, you might want to do that. And he was gracious enough to talk to me on her word. She called him and said, hey, would you mind talking to him? He talked to me, helped me out and get my business up and running. But once he got this major contract, he said, hey, would you like to run it for me? And he literally threw me in the fire. We'll talk once or twice a week, and I'll ask some questions. He'll say, well, do this, do that. But he put me in the fire. He made sure I had everything I needed, but I had to learn on my own, man. I was 25 years old. I never forget. I was 25 years old, and I'm working with people double my age, and they're like, I'm listening to this fool, and who is he? And they knew how to do way more work than I did, but I learned something. And he said, him and I had a conversation. He said, I didn't pick you because you knew how to do the work. I picked you because you knew how to deal with people. And that resonates me to this day in business, because your management is probably not going to be the best worker, but that's the person who know how to deal with different personalities. And once I started shuffling the deck, it was a 24-hour contract, 7 days a week. I was willing to shuffle the deck, put people in the right places, and got my team the way it needed to be. And we got a 12% increase in the first year, and he was able to actually sell the company, sell that contract and make a bunch of money off of it. And I was off to the races with my own thing.
That he chose you because you knew how to deal with people. What does that look like? Because a lot of people think that they know how to deal with people. Hey, when I was starting out, I thought I knew how to deal with people, but turns out, looking back, now I'm connecting the dots. I was an idiot at it. And so what do you mean when you say that you got picked out because you knew how to deal with people?
Well, what he was telling me was, again, like he had a young lady. I'll tell you real quick. I had a young lady. She wasn't young. She's about 50 years old, but she was the best person for the job, literally, as far as skill set. But horrible with horrible temperament. She's yelling at everybody. She's straight up military style. I understand that you have to deal with each person differently. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what's going to make you, be the best employee, what's going to bring the best out of you, and then I'm willing to work beside you. She was the type, this is your job. You need to know how to do it. I'm not going to be here to help you. I showed you already. So no, I'm going to make it easy for you to do your job. So if you, in the same way, if you don't do your job, I made it easy for you to fire yourself. So it was just a great situation. And then not only dealing with the employees, and that being a project manager, I had to deal with the facilities manager. I had to deal with the owners of the building, of the space. You had to be able to wear different hats. So not only was I equipped to go ahead and be on my regular uniform, but I could put a suit and tie on as well and have this business meeting talking about this new project. Because again, they'll have events. This is extra money. It was a base contract of $1 million, but if they have an event at the space, that could be another $20,000. I got to be able to negotiate that and say, how much are we going to charge? Because we got to bring new people in here. We got to do this. We got to clean up. There's so much stuff going on, and she wouldn't have been prepared for that. She'd have been totally overwhelmed dealing with that. All she knew is she was a practitioner. She wasn't a manager, and that was the thing.
Definitely negotiation skills is one of the most important things for you, and being diplomatic, not just with your people, but with your potential clients or with your current clients. And you are completely right in identifying that there are people who are specialists and they're really good at what they do, and we respect them for that. But people who are managers, who are leaders, have to be really good with people. And that is a really good point right there.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
Sometimes we like finishing the easiest tasks first because we feel good checking that from our task list. But what we're really doing is filling up our jar with sand. And so the important things don't get done for that day, and they have to be moved to the next day. And since next day is already filled, it would keep getting procrastinated until we feel bad about it that we can't finish stuff on time.